light room. Check into the light room. Check into the light room with your green hearts. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. We are back with episode 32425. Listen, I don't know what number it is. I just know what date it is. So we'll go by that, right? This is episode 32425. And we're here with Devyn Michole. I want you to check in with your green hearts. Go ahead and share this live. I am your host, Marquita Dorsey, visionary for the light room, right? Visionary for educating, empowering, and equipping the Black and Brown communities with the knowledge, skills, tools, and resources to advocate for their mental health. You are here because you realize, just like I realized, it is time to live a healthy life. It is time to live a blessed life. It is time to live a successful life, right? And we have the opportunity to do so, right? You can advocate for your mental health. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope it's not your last time in this podcast space. Also, if you have not, go ahead on over to my YouTube channel, right? It's at the Light Room 22. You have to put it all in there, at the Light Room 22, because there's another beautiful Black content creator who has a podcast entitled The Light Room. That's not me. You can subscribe to her after you subscribe to this light room. Okay, go ahead and share this live with your family, your friends. My mother is here, so you know it is time to get started. Go ahead and share this live in your Facebook group, your family group messages. Listen, if you are a parent, check into this live. If you are a church kid, right, at any age and any stage in this life, if you identify like we did, like we do as a church kid, be in the room. Somebody shared with me the clip that's resurfaced. That's what the information said about Donnie McClurkin and him just speaking about his truth first and foremost, and the realities of the things that have happened and probably still continue to happen in the church. We're not talking about that, but if you're a church kid, you understand what I'm saying. Go ahead, share this live, check in with your green hearts. I already have Devyn in the green room, right? Because we're fancy over here now. It's 2025. We have a green room, right? We have our guests waiting in the green room. I don't have sodas, but I think they have sodas at their homes, water, whatever they like. But we do have a special place in this space for them to wait before they come onto the stage. So before they come onto the stage, I like for you to go ahead and share the live, right? If you have questions, if you have comments, if she says something, not if, when she says something that resonates with you, go ahead and drop fire. Go ahead and drop green hearts. Go ahead and share that comment. Go ahead and retweet it. Are we still tweeting? Probably not. First of all, don't go there. But go ahead and make that a status, right? Go ahead and type that in the comments. But right now, I just want you to share this live. I want you to share this live because we're getting ready to have a very good conversation. And y'all know how I do it. I'm not going to give you all the preliminaries before we get started because I want you in the space. And I don't want to take up any more time welcoming you in because I want to get right into this conversation. It's going to be a very beautiful conversation. If you're interested in homeschooling your children, but you've never done it, right? There are so many things that are changing for our culture, for our nation, for us as a people. And there are many of us and many of things that we're just going to have to adjust, whether we like it or not. Some things are going to become our new reality. And so I'd rather we be safe than sorry, than prepared. I'd rather us be prepared than running around like what? Chickens with our head cut off. So go ahead and jump into this live, right? We're getting ready to have this amazing conversation with this amazing church kid. That's what I'm going to call her. With this amazing church kid, right? So go ahead and share this live. If you're a pastor, come on in. We'll talk with you. Put your comments, put your thoughts, put your concerns, whatever the case may be, in the comments section. I'm going to go ahead and grab her from the green room and bring her up to the stage in the light room so we can have this conversation. Just like I said, I would. Welcome. Right. Man. Hey. Welcome to the light room. I am so glad. Listen, before I even say anything else, y'all see what I'm saying? That's why I said if you're a church kid, come on in the room. Pray. Soon as she popped up, okay? Pray. Yeah. Right there.
Pray and play.
We don't play about praying. So go ahead and that's it. So church kids, let's unite right here in the comments. Right here in the comment section. But welcome to the light room, Devyn. I'm absolutely glad to have you here. And just based on our previous conversation about why I asked you to come into the light room, before we get into that conversation, I like to let the people know how I met the guest, and then I'll allow the guests to introduce themselves in their own way. So you can share as much or as little as you like before we get into our conversation. So the first time I saw you is what I'll say. And I think I remember him introducing us by handshake and all that at the end of the event, but I'm probably going to say it wrong. So shout out to Rodriguez Jones for inviting me to was it a Supo set?
Oh, Sopo.
Yes. Okay. So he invited me to that in Memphis, and I was like, you know what? Hey, I ain't doing nothing. And that was the first place that I actually saw you perform, saw you, do your thing. And I was like, okay, and the hair. So I'm like, okay, she's dope. And then life happened, and a couple years later, we ended up in the same church. Shout out to Reverend Oliver over there at Grace Fellowship. So we've been in the same space a couple of times. And then thirdly here, we're on Facebook and we're friends. And I'm always, if y'all don't know, you better know, I'm always going down the Facebook timeline. I mean, I ain't stalking nobody, but I am looking. I am studying. I am trying to point out who inbox I need to be in. I will jump in your DMs, all right? But it's going to be about the light room. So you were posting, I want to say around 2020, about your therapy experiences. And as a mental health advocate and coach, as someone who has experienced therapy myself, I thought it to be very therapeutic, how open you were, and then just your assessments from the sessions. And I was like, wow, we need to talk about that, especially because we church kids. What are these church kids doing in therapy? Why are we going to therapy? So that's how I know Devyn. And now I will allow you to introduce yourself.
I mean, I just like to keep it short and sweet. I'm Devyn Michole. I sing, I do stuff. I just be out here being a parent and a wife. Out of the shirt, wife life.
That's it.
That's me. But before I'm all of that, I'm a woman first. I find that it's really easy to take on those other titles and forget about myself. So I'm a woman first. Amen. And wife and mom.
See, me. Listen, y'all don't want to miss this conversation. Okay, we're opening up with the fire, and I'm glad you did that, right? As a mother, right? Never been a wife, but as a mother, it is so easy to become encapsulated in that title. And there's nothing against our children. And if you are a wife, there's nothing against your husband. But you can't do anything for anybody else if you don't take care of yourself. And so for so long, we watched our mothers, aunties, grandmothers diminish their own health, trying to be there for everybody else, right? Trying to be there for everybody else. So I appreciate the fact that we are, in retrospect, like introspectively going inside saying, hold on, let me start here before I start pouring out. Because the saying is true. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If nothing's in there, nothing's going to come out. So I'm glad that you open up with that. Okay, well, we're going to jump right into the conversation. Like I said, I wasn't stalking, but I was just sliding up and down. The page, and there was this one post, right? Since you actually said that, and I wrote it down, and it said, the way my marriage and motherhood has changed me. I'm about to need a therapist because I don't even know how to live in this kind of stability and joy. This is a whole different level and quality of life. Because my question was going to be, how did you end up in therapy? But then I saw that. All right. So now I know how you ended up in therapy. But just hearing that back, take us back to that moment when you realized that whole different level of quality of life and joy.
Frankly, I'm doing something I did not see. This is not how I grew up. I don't have any positive marriage role models to look back at to be like, oh, okay, that's how this works. Mm-hmm. I just knew I felt safe. I knew my kids are experiencing something I did not even think was possible. I'm somebody who did not want to be a parent because of just the stuff I seen and how I came up. I just felt like I was gonna be the rich auntie.
Come on, rich auntie vibe.
So, when I got to this point and everything that I had been through was battling where I am now, I guess the best way I could put it is I'm in a place where I don't have to survive. And so I've spent 30 plus years in survival mode and I don't have to be. And so I was like, I'm going to have to talk to somebody because I'm trying to parent my kids through my own trauma. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to be married past my own experiences. Because not only did I not see healthy marriage, this is my second marriage, and my first one was abusive. So I really just been surviving. So trying to get out of that and being aware of that, there's like two sides to self-awareness. It can be good or it can turn you every way but loose. And I was on that end of the spectrum. It was just turning me. So I knew something was wrong, but I just was being really, really hard on myself. But because of how it came up, I don't have any tools. I just know that there's a problem, but I don't know how to fix it. So I had to go to the people with the tools.
Yeah, I wanted to make some banners, but it was also good at one time. I didn't want to listen. If y'all want to see the banners, these nuggets, these high notes, you're going to have to go ahead and subscribe to YouTube when I have to rewatch it. And then I can pull out the nuggets. Because right now we're going to be present in such a moment because, man, right? So many high points when you're realizing there's two sides to awareness, two levels to awareness. That was so good. And it will. Sometimes you can realize, that pic, you actually get to see yourself, that mirror, and boy, okay, and boy, or you can see yourself and be like, wow, whoa, it's a little dusty in here, right? And you can decide, like you did, well, let me go get somebody who has a rag and some polish to help me get this dust off. Or you can be like, you know what, man, bump it. We all dusty. I'm just going to hide under my dust, So it just depends, two sides of the coin. But you said so many beautiful things, like the fact that also you said there were no previous examples for you to live by. And so with survival, with you having no examples, you had no other choice, right? But pull from the air, like, I can't say this is like or this is not like, because you didn't have the examples. Right. So the fact that you went to therapy because you said it was pushing against, like you felt safe, but there was something on the inside pushing against. What did that kind of feel like, if you could put it in words, that pushing against? What did that feel like?
So I'm the type of person, I can be excited, but you'll never know. You'll never get the outside because I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop. Mm-hmm. So in my brain, if I get excited, then that gives leeway for something bad to happen. So I always downplay joy. Wow. And the irony is, to get through all the stuff that I got through, I'm funny. So I use the jokes so I can be funny but not have joy. And so that is really what was kind of messing me up. So I had to make the decision not to be the funny friend. Wow. Because everybody comes to me with their stuff. And I've had people literally call me and be like, make me laugh, I'm sad. But I don't trust people enough to be like, I'm feeling kind of sad, pick me up, because I'm always in survival mode. And so those things, knowing that I'm safe, but always feeling like I got to be prepared to fight, that's crazy. That's double-minded.
Oh, come on. That's double-mindedness.
That is double-minded. Wow. So I really had to, put that in check, because it started to affect my family, my marriage, and my kids. How I was showing up, it was showing that the internal conflict was external. And I don't think anybody really wants to live like that. You don't really want to be double-minded or have a tornado just hurling around on the inside. You don't really want to, but you have to make a choice. Is that how you want to continue to stay? Because tornadoes, once you're used to it, once you're used to chaos, it's not a big deal. It just is what it is. If people knew how me and my siblings grew up, if you see me and my brother Christian, you would never think that all of the stuff, because we're just funny, and me and him have never had an argument. So, siblings, they argue when they banter. Even though we're 8 years apart, we've never had an argument because we had to survive. So we didn't get the freedom of just, you're annoying me, because we always in survival mode. So we've always been close. So we never got the opportunity to argue.
Wow.
So that's my standard of living. So being here, way beyond that, it's uncomfortable. So I'm like, I can't raise my kids like that. They haven't grown up in the hood. They don't have any idea of ghetto, or they don't know. Their dad is here in the house. Mine didn't show up to games or anything. So trying to navigate an experience that I know nothing about, I ain't have a choice but to go sit on somebody's couch after I got up off the altar.
Listen. Somebody said that therapy is replacing deliverance. So what you doing in them folks' office? Why you just didn't go through deliverance, Devyn?
Because you got to know how to maintain it. You got to maintain the deliverance. So once you get up off the altar, then what? How do you maintain that? Your spirit man may be delivered, but you got to get your flesh in order. So for me, again, after I got up off the altar, I had to go sit on somebody's couch, because I've been using food probably since I was maybe 8.
You said food?
Using food. So some people's drug of choice is weed or alcohol. I've been using food since I was 8.
Wow. Comfort food.
And people, always comfort. Always something sweet. Having cans of icing under my bed. After hearing a whole lot of stuff, then I just go and sneak some cookies. I go sneak and get some icing. I go sneak and get me a piece of cookie dough out the freezer. I've been doing it my whole life.
Wow.
But I didn't have any tools to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because I can't control what the adults are doing. I can't control what my birth father is doing. I have no control over that, but I can control this plate. This is something I can control. I can control what I eat. That's something that I can control, and I can eat as much or as little as I choose. But once it becomes an addiction,
you don't have as much control as you thought you had. It controls you now, huh?
Correct. So by the time I was 17, I was on high blood pressure medication. But I was an athlete. So you talking about playing JV and varsity and running track and playing AAU and Nike League basketball, all that stuff. High blood pressure.
Wow.
All the way until I was 21. So 17, 21, high blood pressure, because I'm eating, because I don't have no control over anything else.
Wow. And so, and just the link, right? As an adult now and looking back, this started as a child, like your comfort. And I'm saying you finding comfort in what, and the way you explain it, like most people will say, you just addicted to food, or they'll say, I'm addicted to food. I don't know. I just love food. I can't help it. I just love food. But getting to the root or explaining it with a level of clarity, like you just did, it really, for me, it really proves why. Well, I'll say give light to why we need mental health services, clinical mental health services, right? Because it's not just because I like food. It's not because it's so good. I mean, it's good, but it's not just because it's so good. There's an attachment. There's an emotional attachment.
Right.
The fact that you eat so much that your blood pressure's out of whack, your blood sugar's out of whack, you're gaining weight uncontrollably. And I know a lot of times it's easy to say you eat too much. That's why you're fat now, like saying all the external things.
Right. That's fruit. That's not the root. That's the bottom line, which is also why you need to be sitting on somebody's couch, because if you're going to talk about gluttony, that's not a spirit that comes by itself. That's not something that travel by itself.
It's not.
There was something that got you to that point. So we got to deal with all of that. The gluttony is just the face. That's it. But that face got a whole body. So you got to deal with all of that.
It's the fruit, just like you said. And I'm glad we're using our church kid terminology. And that's where I'm going next. I want you to give your definition of church kid. And I love it. Like I identify as a church kid, because literally when I'm speaking in different places, or I'm telling people who I am, where I come from, I'll say, listen, I've been in church all my life. Like from my mama carrying me to church in the car seat to me driving myself to church in the car, right? That's
right.
a major part of, who I am, the way I think, the way I operate. And so, but we also know the root of some of this fruit that we see is from church life. It's from church life. So what is a church kid? Per Devyn, what is a church kid?
I think, I don't know if these new kids are really church kids.
Nah,
they
got
don't.
a choice.
That right, yeah. Number one, they got a choice. They have a choice whether they come. They got a choice on whether they serve. To me, a true church kid is somebody like me. So, I was in the Shabbat Chorale, which was the kids choir. I was in Joshua Generation. That's the youth and young adult choir. I ushered. I praise dance. I was on the step team. I was on the dance team. What else? I served with the youth department before I was even like grown. I was like 15, helping with the kids in church. Like giving my first sermon at 15, being in purity class, all of those things, going to revival, not getting out until 11, still getting up for school, only to return to revival the next day. All the things. That to me is a true child kid.
Listen, children, youth of this day and age. So the fact that you even have a choice to eat, look, from watching it online, right? The fact that you can even stay in your bed and watch the preacher preach and the choir sing. Okay, you're not a true church kid yet. You're not a true church kid,
right?
And so, and those are just you saying those things and bringing it back. Yeah, my mama said you cannot just be no pew member. You gonna either. I sang as well because my family sang, so we were the choir. Wherever my family went, we the large number of the choir. And so, and my mama is the chief usher in the land. Okay. Everybody got to know where their gifts are. You got to know where your gifts are. and we know where our gifts are. And so even my son was an usher, but putting that work in, and there are so many, it's such, as a church kid, right? Talking about church can be a very fickle subject. It could be a very, very sensitive thing. And so, like we said earlier, the clip about Donnie McClurkin that just popped back up, right? And him talking about his experience, and I don't know if I want to say that led to homosexuality or whatever, but I know him saying that he was violated essentially by somebody in the church. And we know Donnie is one of many who have that testimony about things happening like that at church. And so as a church kid, like, and we don't have to talk about whether you've experienced that or not, but just knowing of it, knowing somebody, if you could talk to the church kid about the benefits of therapy, if that's your experience, what would you say to like bring them to that place of faith plus works?
Yeah. I think it just really truly boils down to believing whether or not you should have life and have it abundantly. Essentially. I think it just boils down to that. It's really easy to pull out a bunch of scriptures on healing and deliverance and pulling out all of these Bible characters. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. Is your choice, and you have to decide if you want to be consumed by that experience and that pain, or if you want to get beyond it. And as somebody who has experienced being violated in church and out, you kind of have to, forgiveness, I say it this way because I also do this with my biological father. Forgiveness is not a momentary thing all the time. Sometimes it's every time it come up in your brain, you gotta be like, okay, I'm gonna let that go. You have to make the decision not to be a time traveler. You can't go back and fix it. You can't go back and make a different choice. You can't go back and be like, well, I'm gonna take a left down the hallway instead of a right because that's how I ran it. You can't time travel. So at the end of the day, you just have to make the choice. You just have to make the decision on whether or not you want life and you want it more abundantly. And even if you're suicidal, it's not that you want to die. You want the pain to stop.
Yeah.
You want the voices to be quiet. And so that is where you have to make the choice. I can't make it for you. Nobody can make it for you. That's something you have to want it that bad that you're willing to do the work. And every time it comes up in your mind, then you just make the decision to let it go. Yeah. I don't believe in forgive and forget. There's a lot of things you can turn off in your brain, but if you've turned it off in your brain, if you've thrown it in the sea of forgiveness in your brain, you got a bigger problem.
You don't block it. You got blocked.
That closet is going to bust open. Mm-hmm. So all the stuff that you think you forgot, you convinced yourself never happened. Eventually, there's going to be something that triggers you, and you got to deal with all of that. So it's best to just go ahead and get it cleaned up now.
Go ahead and get it cleaned up now. And I'm glad you said that. Again, my analogy for that is that you're just building up a pile under the rug, like a pile of dust. You're just sweeping it under the rug. And one day, when you coming home from work, the traffic was crazy. You know, the people at work done teed you off, and you walk in that door and you're going to be met by that pile that you kept pushing under the rug, and boom, you're going to trip and fall. Ain't nothing worse. Or like when you're walking out the door and you got on jeans or something with the loops and you get hung up in the door handle, or the key, something just holds you and snatch you back. And you just want to burn the whole house down, right? You just want to burn it all down. But that wasn't even the reason, right? That wasn't even a reason that you're at that level of frustrated. And so, again, we're church kids, and I have a lot of thoughts. I have some pastors that are going to come up in this space as well, and we're going to have really good, deep conversations, because one thing for me was that this moment where I'm going to say the church as a system was not being accountable. When there was a time in the social media space, people were sharing their experiences about how they church hurt, right? And I'm using my quotey fingers. So how they experienced church hurt, or just how they were really violated. And what I was disappointed by was I didn't see, the systematic accountability from pastors, preachers, leaders. What I saw was, well, that ain't happening in my church. Well, come to my church. That don't happen over there. And it was sad because the system. I live in Tennessee. You live in Texas. They live in Chicago. They live in Michigan. But we've all had an experience in this system. Telling me that it didn't happen at your church ain't going to help me.
Right.
Telling me that, well, that was just one church. It was the invalidating of experiences and feelings that, again, as a mental health professional, it just really broke my heart, right? Because even that, right, the conversation could have been deliverance plus therapy, right? Prayer plus therapy, prayer plus, going into those toolbox, getting somebody to work up the roots. You know what I'm saying? Everybody couldn't have been making up the same story.
Right.
I couldn't have been making up the same story. And so, like I said, that was, for me as a church kid, with my own levels of experience, it was just very difficult to watch, very difficult to see. But one thing for me personally, I did what you said. I came to a place where the decision was right in my face. Somebody said to me, my faith was challenged at a level that had never been challenged in my life. Where I'm from, you either believe or you believe. That's the only choice you have. You either believe or you believe. That's it. And so to be met with the opposition or the choice to say you don't have to believe, or what you think you believe is not really that, girl. It was tough, right? It was tough. And so one day I came to a moment like, girl, you got to make a decision, because you also aren't progressing either. Going back, trying to prove this, disprove that, figure out this and that. And so I was like, listen, based on my own personal experience, the fact that I want life and life more abundantly, and the fact that I've seen the fruit from the root of what I know about what's written in here, child, I made a decision. Listen, I made a decision, and this one that I'm willing to go to the far distance for, and that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
That's on me. So I want people to be empowered to make the same decision. I think I just had to get that little part out about church, since we were talking about church kids, because I've been waiting a long time to say it out loud. But I do want the church to realize, and things are shifting. I feel things are turning about in a positive way, where we are getting to the place. Because I have seen some pastors. Shout out to Pastor Courtney Franklin, right? He did an amazing job at one moment, because people were, kind of crying out loud, and he did what he could. He did what he could for validating people, and still, respecting the fact that he's a believer, and then offering the resource of therapy. So shout out to him for that. But I'm going to shift it a little bit, because otherwise I'm going to be over here. You know what I'm saying?
I do want to say, I think every church should have a resource directory.
Good point.
I'm saying you need to employ a therapist at your church. But in order to make church a safe space, you need to have resources. So every pastor is not licensed to do this therapy.
Right.
That's fine. Pull out the directory. Tell them.
Oh, see Sister Johnson down the hall. Yeah. Right. She trained. See Sister Johnson in the children's church.
This is a therapist our church has a relationship with. We send you a reference. Go over there. And I think that's for multiple things. For housing, food insecurity, of course, therapy. But if the church is to be, hands and feet, and if we're supposed to be an example, then I think at a bare minimum, we need a book of resources. Everybody should have a directory to just refer people to.
I definitely agree with that. And thank you for sharing that point. The first time I had that experience was New Direction Christian Church in Memphis. Shout out to Dr. Stacy Spencer. Apostle. He got a lot. Dr. Spencer, Apostle Dr. Stacy Spencer, all the things, right? And they have a counseling portion for the members, and it was free, and you just make your appointment. And these were trained clinicians who offered their services. Miss Mary Avery, rest her soul, and then Miss Barbara. Like, I remember those two, but they were therapists on site. And that was my first time, because I'm originally from Mississippi. But that was my first time seeing that there and seeing that available to members. Right. So there are some ministries who are doing what they can to support the people, but there are many who need to do more. Also out here in Texas, there's a model by Dr. Keely Petty. She's also a pastor. It's called the Trauma Informed Ministry Model. And so she actually prepares churches and their members to be trauma informed, how to support their members when they're going through certain things until they get to therapy, if you will.
Yeah.
The tools and the resources are there. Advocacy, right? The pastors have to advocate for their members on their behalf. And like you said, bring that into it. Like, it all works together, right? Like in social services, we have the wraparound services, right? You get the food. We know who to call for the food. We know who to call to get you a job. We know who to call to get you housing. We know how to call to get you the soft skills, like all these people. And we all work together for this one client.
Right.
For this one client, all these resources come together for that one client. So it would definitely be wise for ministry to do the same thing. So thanks for sharing that. And we're going to slide over from the church. And I want to talk about what happens at your house. Let's talk about what happens at home. How did you decide, right? How did homeschool become a thing for you and your children?
So I have been working with my kids probably since a few weeks since they came home from the hospital. With the help of my mom, I started a routine. So I would read to them, play songs, and of course, newborns can't see color, so there's black and white visual videos that they can watch just to kind of practice, focusing until their eyesight gets better. When as they get older, start to see color. They make those same videos in color. And then once they started sitting up, then I moved to something called Preschool Prep Company. They pretty much do all of your early learning, so letters, numbers, colors, both in English and Spanish, multiplication, addition. So when you need that time to shower or something, then I would just put that on. Mm-hmm. So I could shower and they were still learning, like their brains was just, taking it all in. And so since I had been doing that from practically birth, I sent Kyla, my oldest, to Head Start, and her teacher said she should not be in her class. She was the only 2-year-old in her class who could read. And she thought that she should be with like the 4-year-olds because we already knew numbers, colors, shapes, and she could read, not just
calling the words.
2 little, 2-letter words or 3 letters. She could actually read. Wow. And so at that point, once we talked to the administration and they were not willing to accommodate because there's no actual laws to address that part of the spectrum, I didn't have a choice but to pull her out because we were paying. So she basically was the teacher's assistant. So when I would go pick her up, she would be telling the kids like what to do. All this is, we're transitioning. So we're going to, it's reading time. She's 2 and she's telling other kids it's time to do X, Y, and Z. She's wiping the table, sweeping the floor. She's just helping the teacher because the teacher didn't have anything. So I literally had to bring her books to school so the teacher could work with her while like the teacher's assistant was helping other kids with letters. Wow. Yeah, so at that point we didn't have a choice but to pull her out. And now we've gotten to the point where she won't be able to fit in a traditional school because her schoolwork, the courses she takes, range from 1st grade to 4th grade. So she wouldn't do good in a traditional setting because she's all over the place. So for example, her math is in 1st grade, but her language and literacy is in 4th.
Wow.
So that's if you consider that, I think the last bit of statistics for Shelby County, the kids here in Memphis, 70% of them are not reading on grade level. And she's 6 doing 4th grade language and literacy.
Go, Kyla. Not to mention she knows the Lord personally.
Okay. Right. So, and that's also another aspect of why she probably won't go to school, because she's been made fun of for her relationship. And it's just by the grace of God that he's covered her ears. She's literally been present while kids were making fun of her, but it's as if she doesn't even hear it. So wow. We just rather, and my son, him and his busy self.
Carol don't care. He's
not a care in the world
thing. Wow. And so this series, and thank you for sharing it, and just the intentionality in parenting, paying attention to your children, knowing what they need. And it makes me think about, as a parent, the scripture, train up a child in the way that they should go. When they're old, they won't depart from it. And I know sometimes that can be coupled with spanking the child. Of course, better rise, spoil the child too, but all that kind of is coupled with you putting what you think. A lot of parents putting what they think the child should have. And right. So at a point, I was that parent as well until, I realized, number one, my son and I, like, we were 2 different people. He had his own personality. He had his own way. And so I was just like, okay, God, help me to see this child. Help me to see, what he needs so that I can raise him, pour into him what he needs, not just what I want or what I think it should be as his mother, but who he needs to be. Because one day he's going to become an adult and I won't be there to hold his hand and do all these things for him, but he needs to already have poured into him who he is. And so homeschooling and being able to, identify those things, it ain't for everybody, right? And there's no shade against the parents that can do it and the parents that can't. It's not for everybody.
No, it's not. If you want to do it, there are co-ops, so you can just send your kids off with other homeschool kids and people can help them, so you don't solely have to be in charge of your child's education. There's a lot of groups, faith-based and secular. You just have to do the work. But there's I can't remember his name, but he was a doctor, and something that he said that I try to live by is parents are stewards or shepherds, not engineers. So you cannot make your kid be what you think. You can only guide them and shepherd them according to how God has made them. So you just have to follow whatever their interests are. You have to lean into that versus what you just want to make them do. Everybody's not going to be a doctor and a lawyer.
Yep.
Everybody's not going to go to the NFL or the NBA. Ooh, somebody got to fix the toilets. Then plumbers do all.
Plumbers call somebody to do it. So get your sons, daughters, whatever ready, because I'm going to be the one to call and say, "Hey, baby, come over here and fix this for auntie," because I don't know what to do with it.
I mean, somebody got to put the wires in so you can flip your light switch on and off. They do all right. They're not broke
at all. Okay, at all. But it's us with these degrees. Anyway, it's us who want but yeah. So homeschooling, and again, this series is our relationship series, right? And so I wanted to touch all aspects of relationships. And so you're in the space of the parenting role, the relationship with church and all those things. How has this helped to develop your relationship, one with yourself and with your children, being in this homeschooling space?
Being in a homeschooling space really just kind of showed me how much God put in us, like the details. Like I think when we read, like He knows the hairs, on our head, we just kind of like, oh, it's a lot of hairs, whatever. But to know that I have a 4-year-old who has been an engineer practically since he came out. Yeah. I didn't even push him out. He pushed himself out. He escaped. He escaped. It's by the grace of God they connected that table to catch him because he pushed himself out. But he's always been that way. So since the day he came earthside, that is how he has been. So when he was like 1, he put a hole in the playpen, and then it just became a thing, and he just discovered it just got bigger and bigger. He was like, I can get myself out. I
think I saw that picture as I was scrolling down in that playpen. Yes.
Yeah, so his brain has always been working. And so if I was a different kind of parent, I would try to beat the engineer out of him. I would try to beat, because in my brain, I would just think he's just being terrible. It's the terrible 2s, it's the treacherous 3s, but he's really just an engineer. So I need to figure out how to funnel that energy and put it into something. His brain is just always going. Everything is a science experiment to him. And so my mom's an educator, and so he asked for a hammer. Now, what is a 4-year-old going to do with the hammer? I don't know. He's just praying that he don't hammer nothing.
I was going to say, just put him in the backyard when you give it to him.
Right. So what we did was we took some foam boards, and of course he can't have any real nails. So we got golf tees, and he used them as nails on the foam board, and he built the robot. He made a little robot that could stand up, and he's 4. So I know that he's an engineer. So rather than beating him for always touching stuff and wanting to know how it works, well, here's the things that you can do to put that energy to use.
Wow.
The issue with buying baking soda and vinegar because he wants to make a volcano. Fine. Just do it over there. These are the parameters, these are the rules. Do it over there. Stay on the tray. And he can do it himself. So just knowing that God is that detailed, that from one, it was very evident that he's an engineer. God did that to everybody. He did that for everybody. There's not a soul that's created where he didn't think far ahead and it didn't show up in childhood. And for most people, whatever they say they wanted to be as a kid, that's kind of where they lean. Mm-hmm. Even if, they don't go into that specific job, that's kind of where they lean once they grow up. So, just to know again that God thought enough of us when he said he knew us before we got here. So he was an engineer before he got
here ready. He's like, y'all move out the way. I got stuff to build.
Right. He pushed himself here. Then once he was old enough, he put a hole in the playpen. And then he just started taking stuff apart.
Wow.
So I really could have been, whooping him.
Beating the engineer out of him.
Right. I could have, beat the engineer out of him. But that's who God made him. And it's my job to shepherd that. It's my job to lead him beside the still waters and the green pastures of engineering. So I think homeschooling just really showed me how intentional God is and the capabilities of our minds. See Kyla, talking to her, you don't get that she'll be 6 on Saturday. You don't get that she's 6. She does not give you 6-year-old.
That's an old soul for sure. That's an old soul. She been
yes. Yes. She's very, very caring. So she'll just come in our room and she'll go, I just was checking on y'all. Y'all okay? Just she's just she'll talk to anybody. And when she says bye, she goes, God bless you. She's always concerned about people. And some people might find that annoying and they might be like, she's trying to be grown. She's not grown. Mm-hmm. That's just how God made her. And it's my job to shepherd her into whatever that may be. I don't know if she'll be a teacher or a social worker or, if she'll be on platforms speaking and encouraging people. I don't know that, but she has a heart for people. She genuinely wants to see people okay. And some people might want to, whoop that out. She just thinks she's grown. She just thinks she's not being grown. She's being caring. That is just how God made her. So knowing that at 5, almost 6, she's aware of people and their emotions and she's able to pick up and she doesn't mind praying for people. That's what God put in her. So just to think that God created these brains and we don't even use all of it. We don't use all of it. But if we start as adults, if we pour into these kids when they're small, they'll use more of it.
Yep.
And I'm aware of the fact that I have a luxury of being able to stay home with our kids because at this point in society, homeschooling is a luxury. It shouldn't be, but it is a luxury. So my kids' vocabulary, their speech and things surpasses most of the kids their age. And it's not because, and I'm not saying it like as a downgrade, but it's not because they're geniuses. They were just poured into since they came earth side. That is, just pouring in. So just to think that God loves us enough to pour into us from the day that we are born. From he never skipped a day.
Never skipped a day.
He's never skipped a day. So I'm with my kids every day. I don't skip a day. They get personal days. If they are just emotional and they can take a personal day.
Wow.
That's okay because you need to be aware of your emotions and where you stand and not, especially for Kyla as a Black girl, the adultification of Black girls. I mean, by the time you're 6, if she was in school and something happened, her white counterpart wouldn't be held to the same level of discipline because they're going to look at her like she's more mature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you need to know, starting early, what you can and cannot handle. You need to be aware of your emotions, but I don't make them adults. You just, if you ask them, they can tell you what your hippocampus does. They can tell you what your prefrontal cortex does. They can tell you what your amygdala does. And if they're, out of control, they'll tell you, I need to control my amygdala. I got to get my prefrontal cortex, and let it control me. My hippocampus to help me to remember to make good choices, not bad choices. They remember that. They know that now. Yeah. So just the fact that God thought enough of us to pour into us day after day after day after day, and give us gift after gift and skill after skill, and then we get older and we don't use it. If you look at kids, you can pretty much give them anything and they'll figure something out. They'll do it. So I think homeschooling pretty much showed me that God's intentionality with us.
I'm containing which part of it helped me contain myself? Ask Kyla which part of this helped me contain myself. Because, again, like I said, I had to make a choice, and this is why I'll continue to make that same choice over and over again. Because when you think about it from the proper perspective, that which you just shared, that's the proper perspective. You can't help but to, get excited, get overjoyed. And again, just hearing you talk about the details, right? The intricacies of your children and the perspective of from God's point of view. I think it's William Murphy. Open my eyes, help me believe I am what you see. Help me to see me the way you see me. And doing that at a very young age. And as I work in workforce in different capacities and different ways, and I'm meeting people in this mental health space, sometimes that's the prayer for people. A lot of times, like you said, we become adults and life has been life, and you no longer see yourself the way God sees you.
Yeah.
So you allow the traumas, the things you've experienced, and that's not to minimize any of it, but you've allowed those things to overpower what was, sewn into your DNA, right? What was interwoven into the threads of who you were before you became earthside, as you said. And so as a parent, I said we get a certain amount of time to have that child's ear specifically. And I just think that's a very sensitive time where we have to pay attention to who this child is. What does this child need to be that God created him to be, him or her to be, so that when they go out, right, they know how to go out as who God created them to be. Because the world, once they leave us and see that, going back to being the church kid part, we don't live it felt like it, but we don't live at church. It felt like it, but we don't live at church. We have to go outside into the world. And I know for some of us, I have friends with people who are church kids as well. And there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of frustration because it's almost as if you sent your children out to the wolves unprepared, right? You're out there just whole identity crisis.
Yes.
Forgetting these things. Whole identity crisis out here for the children of God, for the people of God. And so I'm glad that we were able to hear you explain it and talk about it, because that's the perspective we should have. Whether your children's homeschool or public school, charter school, private school, whatever the case may be, when they do come home, when y'all are in those intimate spaces, remind them of who they always been. Who we've always been, who God created us to be. So I'm glad you get to have that experience.
Let them tell you who they think they are. After the kids are all cleaned up and getting ready for bed, before they leave the bathroom, they have to go to the mirror and say 4 things. And I ask them, who is Kyla or who is Cairo? And they have to give me 4 things. And I don't get to tell them those 4 things. They pick those 4 things. So some days Cairo might be funny, loving, silly, and smart. Other days he might be strong, kind, silly, and silly. It's that's how he sees himself. So it's also, I think, important to have them reaffirm themselves and not be dependent on outside sources to tell them how good they are, how wonderful they are, how smart they are. So even when they do good things, I don't tell them all the time that I'm proud of them. I tell them you should be really proud of yourself. Because I don't want them to get caught up in, well, I gotta please mom. You worry about you.
Yeah.
If you do right, you do what you know you're supposed to do. That works just fine.
Yeah. Right. Wow. That's just so good. So are you across the land teaching, talking about homeschool and telling the parents what to do with these children and how to make, how to make themselves show up in the best way? What would be, and we don't give advice, and I say this in my workplace, here's my highest recommendation. Because I can't tell nobody what to do. I don't tell nobody what to do, but here's my highest recommendation. And so what are some of your highest recommendations when it comes to, and we're going to, with relationship, this is all about relationship with yourself. This is how we kind of started off, your relationship with yourself, the relationship in your marriage, with your spouse, and then the relationship with your children. What are some highest recommendations you would share from each of those perspectives?
I think for yourself, really probably for in this season that I'm in, and not in a churchy way. Everything is seasons. Seasons in church, but just this phase that I'm in, truly just using my phone to navigate my emotions. So there's a feature on, I don't know if they have them on Samsung phones, but there's a feature on iPhone where every day around the same time you can pick an emotion that you're feeling in that time. So it can range from joy, confused, sad, and then once you pick that, it'll give you some other ones stemming from that specific emotion. So you can kind of see where you are, and then it'll also give you the option at the end of the day. So it asks you, how do you feel in the moment? And then at the end of the day, it'll say, how did you feel today? And so once you do that, I say, for a week or so, you'll kind of see, where you are in your emotions. Because sometimes I'm really tense because I'm always like, so I have to just, roll them back and, relax. But if I put that in my phone, then I'm made aware that this is how you react during the day, whether something good or bad is happening. And so using my phone as a reminder or resource, even to take my medication. So I take bupropion. It was for depression, but now I'm kind of figuring out if it can assist me with ADHD. So I think, I need my phone to remind me because I do struggle with remembering to do stuff. I lose focus, a lot. You probably see me looking off because eye contact is a strange thing for me. So, use your phone. It has a lot of resources. And so that, even my phone telling me to, stand up because I can get in a rut and I just next thing I know, I think it's 5 minutes and it's 5 hours and I have no idea that 5 hours has passed and I just been in my head for 5 hours. I have no idea.
I understand.
So, just using my phone and my watch to really, keep myself present, aware of what's happening in me and around me. In my marriage, probably being honest. Being honest. When I say honest, I don't mean like, you bought me this ugly purse for my birthday.
Yeah, that's the part.
But I mean, because that does matter too. It'll be 20 years down the road, and you be like, you can buy me 20 years worth of ugly purses, and I never said a word. I'm sick of it today.
Right.
But you know, being honest about your emotions and your past. So because I dealt with father absence, I have to be honest with my husband about that. And if I'm not aware of it, I can interfere with his parenting because I didn't grow up in a house with a father. So I don't even know how that operates. But if I don't like what he's doing, then it's really easy for me to be like, these my kids. I push these out. You was just there for the fun, but they mine.
Amen.
But you know, being honest with him, and how certain things can make me feel a certain way, even though he has no idea, or that might not be his intention. Just being honest in that capacity, not so much that shirt ugly, but you know, being honest, even about your relationship with money. I used to work at Nike, so I always bought myself shoes because we was poor. Who was getting Jordans? Okay. Now I'm grown. I got Jordan money.
All the ones I want, baby. All the ones. That's it.
So, you know, having that type of relationship with money and being honest about that. I grew up city poor. He grew up country poor. So we have two very different experiences with being poor, because city poor ain't the same thing.
That is true.
So, you know, being honest, even in that aspect. So when I say honest, I don't just mean, you know, I don't really like when you wear them shoes because they're ugly. They lean a little bit too far to the left when you put them on because, you know, you flat footed. Like, I'm not talking about that type of stuff. But, you know, the inner workings of you, that's something that I'm working on. And in that honesty, I'm also having to work on being a people pleaser, because that's a part of my survival. I don't really like to get people all frazzled. I don't want to have to, you know, speak up, because then if you get offended, now I got to talk about your mama. Now I got to.
Now you done set me off, and I got to. Yeah.
Right, because I grew up. I didn't have a middle, so it's either 0 and I take it and I take it and I take it and I take it. Now we at 100. Ain't no 50. You just have it come.
And you might want to run when I get to that 100.
Right. So, you know, having to be honest so that I'm not out here acting 6 kinds of crazy. I'm not throwing stuff and putting holes in the walls. You know, that type of.
Amen.
You know, so you have to be honest in that aspect. And with my kids, being present. There's a lot of parents now that let technology raise their kids. And I'm not opposed to technology because I certainly use it to my benefit, but my kids don't have access to YouTube unless I'm present. So it's not on their TVs. All they have is educational or Christian content on their TVs in their rooms.
Wow.
But, you know, it's important to spend time because that's how you get to learn them. That's how you get to know them. And that's also how you cater to them. So both my kids are very, very clingy, and I'm okay with that. Because the reality is I'm their first safe place. They ain't been nowhere. They wasn't nobody else's stomach. It was me. They're the only people that know my heartbeat from the inside. Nobody heard from the inside except them.
That is true.
So, you know, them wanting to be on me, that is comfort to them. They're used to that pitter patter. They know that. And even though I'm not a clingy, touchy-feely person, you know, I have to cater to that because they deserve that. They deserve somebody that's present. Just today is Monday, so I think maybe Friday, I went to the dollar store and got some little water guns, the little small ones, and we had a water fight in the house.
Oh, in the house. Oh, come on, children. Blessed and highly flavored. Highly flavored, you're doing it in the house. Woo! Baby.
Yeah, but that'll be a core memory.
Yeah, it will.
For them to, remember that we did something crazy. My mama let me do something foolish in the house.
In the house.
So
Keyword,
just
in the house.
being present, right? Being present. We, built a robot out of styrofoam and golf tees, or Cairo likes to cook and stuff, so he made a smoothie with strawberry yogurt and apple. So just being present, because that time you only get, I think, from 1 to maybe 7 or 8 when you are the primary voice, and then after that you lose them.
Yep.
Society is the major voice at that point. So I think being present is really, really important.
That is so good. That's it. No, not the kid. That's right. Being present is more. Come on, son. Being present is more than just being there. Absolutely. Yeah, showing up emotionally, mentally. Like you said, creating some core memories, and I like that you're creating those things. Like the language is being used, and the table is being set, and the things are being said. Because when you look, when you look back, a lot of times, like, dang, I should have did this. Dang, I should have did that. Right. So the fact, if you have the time, if you have the opportunity to be present, again, even if your children are in a public charter private school setting, when they come home, right, put your job, put everything else to the side, and like spend that time with your family, with your children, making sure that they know who you are and you know who they are. Because a lot of times, you'll find once you become an adult, a lot of children don't know their parents, right? Before they became your parent, they were actually a person. Well, they still are a person, but they were a person. They had their own goals, dreams, thoughts, whatever, before they became your parents. And even as your parents, they are their own person. And so a lot of times people will grow up and you don't even know your parents, and your parents don't even know you. So having that time at any stage and at any place in life is so, so, so essential. And then too, you get, for me, I feel like you get, just a one more time around when you become a grandma, right? Because they know when I come to Memphis, baby, drop them off. Goodbye. They belong to me. I tell my son, how you doing? Get back. Where my baby at? Okay.
Yes. So. It matters. But I think if more people understood that you really could just use 15 minutes. I'm well aware of the fact that everybody does not have the luxury that I have to be with my kids all day, every day. And sometimes it don't feel like a luxury. But I'm well aware of that. But 15 minutes can change a lot if you just make that 15 minutes a routine. We just always 15 minutes, either we talk, we watch a part of a favorite TV show. That 15 minutes means everything, and it always leaves the door open. So even when they're older and other people are their primary voice, they know that 15-minute window is always there.
Absolutely. Good. I don't know, man. I mean, a parenting class, a podcast, a mini book featuring Kyla and Kyra. Like, I don't know how you're gonna get this information out here beyond the light room, but I think the people need the support. That's what I say. The support. Because again, sometimes you don't know what to do when you're in it. You do your best, for the most part. You do your best when you're in it. But I think it helps. No, I know it helps when you're surrounded by. To me, this is what the village look like, right? Yes. This is what the village looks like. And if you are in survival mode, if a parent is in survival mode, I'm just doing the best I can or whatever. Just these moments where we're having a conversation with somebody who can say, well, in these moments, can you take 15 minutes? Right? In these moments, can you take 10 minutes and start building this core memory, this core space for not only that child or those children, but for yourself.
Yes.
Before yourself. So, because once they're grown, they're grown.
Right. They don't want to be like me. Ain't nothing I can do for you. All I got is a prayer, friend.
I love you.
That's all I got is a prayer. That's all. So, I really do think that 15 minutes, especially in earlier the earlier phase of life. It's not just good for relationships, but I think the proper word is synapses. So all those little connections your brain makes, your kids pick up on that, and that's what helps them with their speech. That is what helps them with critical thinking. That is how they learn how to hold conversations. So that 15 minutes, although emotionally is really good, educationally, it makes a world of difference. If your child is 3 and you don't do anything but read a book, and while you're reading it, you're asking about the pictures and the characters and did they see this, all of that stuff is literally brain changing.
Yep.
It is literally brain changing. So I think is really important in multiple, phases of life. And you don't want that 15-minute window to ever close. So you got to have it, because once it's closed, good luck getting it back open.
No, for real. Because I tell you, I tell you. And it really is a blessing. And my daddy would say that, right? If you can't learn something from your children, then you got to look at yourself as a parent. At some point, your thanks, as the seasoned saints would say, your thanks should come back to you at some point. You should be able to see the fruits of your labor. But man, listen. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube, you're going to have to go ahead and do that, because this live will not be available on Facebook once we press in the stream. But it will be available on YouTube once it's edited and prepared. But again, Devyn, you have given us such a beautiful view, right? Hey, Holly, you have given us such a beautiful view of parenting. And I tell people when I'm talking now, one of the number one ways that God teaches me things is through my eyes as a parent, right? I learned so much from that relationship, even my relationship with God, just like how to just so much, like everything is. I see it from even at work. I'm like, it's just like a household. It's just like the mother and child. I just see it that way. And so if you are blessed enough to have children, I think is, to your advantage and your child's advantage to be present.
Yes.
And in the long run. So thank you for sharing these details.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I see your babies on, in the social media space, and just Kyla, I'm telling you, man, we look forward to it. Right. I met Jacqueline Carr when she was 12 years old. And in Memphis, 95.7 was having some type of event, and you had to use canned goods to get in. They was doing a fundraiser. And so she was there. She was 12 years old. Here I go. Me and my son went, actually. And here I go. I was like, I bought her CD. I said, well, you stay in school now. You listen to your parents, right? Had no idea who I was standing in front of. Like, so every time I see her, I'm just like, and girl, you up here talking to this child like she wasn't who she was. I'm like, you listen to your parents now. I said, I'm going to buy this CD to support you. And man, girl down here tearing down the walls of heaven and hell around here. So you just never know, right? You just never know. And so Kyla, it's amazing to see. She is definitely a beautiful soul. And I love that you are allowing them to grow into who they were always created to be. And so to the parents that's watching this, that will watch this, be encouraged, right? Take some notes, because she's given a lot of details about how this can look. And this is not I'm a better parent than you, because it's none of that. These are things that each of us can do. And even if your children are adults, right? This is still a beautiful opportunity to turn around and look at this person, right? Beyond being your child, look at this person and see what you can give at this point. Pastor Gerard would say, we switch positions. When the child becomes a certain age, you now become that child's coach. You're not the one calling all the, you're not telling them how to do it. And all that. You got to coach them through it. And so when he said that, it was the perfect time for my son's transition, right? Like he don't need to hear me detail by detail. I need to trust that this young man is developing into who he needs to be. And so now when he needs mama, just, be there to coach him through those moments. So again, no matter where you are in life, if you are a parent, take what you've heard here today. And so as we close out, Is there anything you want to leave the church kids of the social media space with?
No, just make a decision every day. It's
Yeah.
just everything is a choice.
Everything's a choice.
Joy is a choice. And even if the emotion is negative, you can ride that out and then choose something beyond that. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier this week uh about grief, and I was telling them that grief and gratefulness can coincide. They can be together. So, you just have to, write it out and then choose, you know, the opposite end of where you are. You just have to make that choice, and then you just work towards it, because you can choose it and not have it.
Yeah.
It may take work to get there, to obtain it, but just every day it's a choice.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's a good space, right? For what the light room is. You have a choice. And that's what once you're educated and you've been empowered and moved by the things you've heard in this space, and you've been equipped to go out and find these resources, make the choice to come out of victimhood, darkness, whatever that thing is that's holding you down from having the best life. Choose life, and that life more abundantly.
Yes.
Amen. And behind the wall it says pray, right?
Don't forget to pray.
Okay, because the saints be forgetting to play, Devyn. We be forgetting
I
to
don't.
play. Shout out to Holly, baby, because Holly got me out here playing, and I appreciate her and Lily. I appreciate it. I had the time of my life this weekend, okay? Because the saints be forgetting. Holly just told me this Saturday, right? We was just talking about that Saturday. It's about balance, right? You got to have a good balance. Put joy back in your heart. Make yourself joyful. It can't be all that tight stuff all the time. It causes stress. It causes stress.
Right. And balance is not compromise. That's not, because a lot of people call balance. They're like, you can't have balance. They want to use balance and go off to go have brunch. That's not what it is. Balance is just simply just enjoying. How you gonna have life and have it more abundantly and you uptight all the time?
Talk to the saints now.
and balance is not entertaining a flame, and now you on your way to hell because you looking at the flames and it look really fun. Now you done got burnt. Now you caught up. That's not balance. So I think is when you said that, it just made me think like you got to address that whole balance boo-boo that people like to pull out. Like you can't be balanced. Jesus was cracking jokes. Y'all think he was just telling all them parables just straight faced? Because what you mean? You can't be hidden. You can't. What you mean? You don't know what the weather like? Why would you ask me that?
Hey, Joe, where were you? Let me ask you something though. Where were you?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Not
then.
you got smart talking about he without seeing cast the first time. Not your mouth smart.
Okay. Slick with it now. And then again, you got to read that scripture in perspective. Darius Dane says it's prescriptive and descriptive. So I like description, and like sometimes I need a prescription, and sometimes I just need to see what they were doing back then. I want to laugh a little bit too. Okay. So that balance is good. My son says balance also instills discipline. It does. It does. Come on, child. It does, right? Pray, then play. I almost quote a Young Dolph. Y'all know what it is. He said, first I prayed for it, then I hustle for it. I did quote Young Dolph, okay? Pray for it, then you hustle for it, okay? You know what I'm saying?
It is.
I done got excited again, okay? Y'all making my church kid come out. But this is good. And, thank you for coming into this space and talking about, relationships from their perspective of a parent. Love to see it, love to hear it. Your children are truly blessed, and it's a blessing that you all get to share space. And your husband as well. How you doing, sir? We definitely not gonna leave you out.
He like you'll never see him. You just gotta know he there.
Well, you know how it started now. He had the emoji over his face for the longest.
Right. And now he just here, no emoji. He just exists.
That's it. And we love that for him. Okay. It's quiet that way.
Okay. I wonder where he is.
It's quiet that way. It's so good. This is what it's about, man. It's about relationship and choosing. If you don't get nothing else from today's live, and I know you'll get more things, choose. You really can choose. And that's what I had to do. That's what I had to do in 2016 when I reached out to Pastor Gerard, and I can't wait to have him in his space. But I had to choose, right? Whether I was going to keep on sitting in that dark space, or I was going to be like, hey, y'all, something going on over here. Somebody need to help me out. And I'm telling you, the way he responded, it just brought everything to light, and my life has been different ever since. So choose life, y'all, and choose it more abundantly, okay?
That's right.
So I'm gonna give you back to your family, right? I'm gonna give you back, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing space with the transparency and the level of intentionality that you shared it with. Like when you were explaining everything so detailed, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back and write these notes down because I don't want to miss none of this. But thank you for being in this space. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
It's been a while, but good to see you. Hey, everybody over there, Grace.
It's a couple of them in here, I think.
Yeah, I saw Sarah earlier.
Saw
her earlier. So God bless you, honey. Continue on this journey. Continue to enjoy. All
right. Thank you.
Well, wait, before we go, is there anything, do you have any product, resources, or anything that people can support you in or get from you, or?
No, not quite right now. Well, I mean, I do have music that is available. I do have a kid's song teaching them I think like 4 to 6 scriptures. It's a little bit of trap, keeping up with the kids of today. So there's that, but I also have an album I put out a few years ago called What Victory Sounds Like. And I am working on a new single, and I might be working on a podcast called Church Kids Gone Mild. So that is, all the stuff I got going on. So you can just Google my name. If you are looking for some early childhood resources, you can YouTube Me School with Miss D. I have a few videos on there. I have to get back to uploading them, but I do have some early education stuff that also incorporates the Bible. So along with numbers, letters, and stuff, they do learn the scripture. So yeah, that's what I got.
Amen. Saints, get them kids in school with Miss D. Mrs. D, I'm gonna let you get back to your family, honey. You have a great night.
You too.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, peace.
Oh wow, man! I'm telling you, I just love it. The intentionality in the statements that she made, linking it back to the intentionality of God and who He is and how He is and how we were created. Like so mindful. I appreciate it. And I think it was just last week or a week or so that I made a post because God reminded me of how mindful He is of me, even when I don't feel like it, even when I don't think so, even when I, just when I'm not